Beckoned by smooth white sand beaches, clear waters, and a relaxed atmosphere, millions of beachgoers visit the shores of the Gulf of Mexico every year. The Gulf Coast is known as a more laid-back alternative to the roaring surf and invigorating waves of the Atlantic and Pacific coasts. But don't let calmer waters lull you into a false sense of security. Beachgoers at the Gulf Coast are subject to the same coastal hazards as they are at any other shore. But with some knowledge, preparation, and respect for weather and water, you can make sure your Gulf Coast beach vacation stays safe. Bounded by 5 states with hundreds of beach towns, the Gulf Coast is enormous, extending from the Florida Keys westward to the southern tip of Texas for a combined coastline of over 1,600 miles. The conditions at one Gulf Coast beach may be very different from those at another.
It's very important for people to know before they plan a visit to the Gulf Coast. There is quite a bit of variability across the Gulf Coast and the beaches.
If you're planning a vacation here, take some time before your visit to learn about the conditions for the specific beach you're visiting. Here are some important tips that apply throughout the region. Gulf Coast beaches vary, from large, well-populated beaches with lifeguards to more obscure, unguarded stretches of beach. A guarded beach offers the safety of vigilant lifeguards and their guidance about the water conditions.
That means a quick response in case somebody needs help. There's also beach flags that are posted daily along guarded beaches that show different colors. It's important for people to familiarize themselves with the beach flags before they come to the beaches, know what the colors mean.
If you're visiting an unguarded beach that lacks these safety measures, understand that you're completely at your own risk.
Particularly if there's a day where there's a number of rip currents or high surf occurring, you could easily be pulled out due to a rip current or maybe be knocked down by a high wave.
For any beach you visit, and especially those without lifeguards, educate yourself beforehand about the conditions, exercise caution, and stay on top of weather and surf forecasts. Wave conditions at Gulf Coast beaches vary with ocean and weather conditions.
Yeah, there's a lot of differences in the waves from day to day along the Gulf Coast, just depending on different weather conditions offshore. If it's a day with light winds, it may be a very calm, flat day along the Gulf with very little in the way of surf or wave action.
However, high winds from distant storms offshore can create larger, more threatening waves at the beach you're visiting, even if it's sunny and warm where you are.
They become pretty dangerous, especially if they reach a certain height above your knees or waist, where they're large enough to maybe knock you down. So it's good to know what kind of wave conditions are expected by checking your local beach forecast before you go to your local beach.
Even small waves can have tremendous power. They can crash over your head, neck, or back with a strong, sudden impact that can pin you against the sand or hard, jagged objects, putting you at risk for serious injury. When entering or exiting the water, never turn your back on the waves and keep children close. Help them into the water and back to shore. The number one cause of drowning in the Gulf of Mexico are dangerous currents, and there are different kinds to know about. The most common is a rip current.
Rip currents are our number one weather-related killer here on the Gulf Coast. Between the Alabama and Florida Panhandle beaches, between 2002 and 2021, there's been 191 rip current fatalities during that time span, and that's more than the number of fatalities from lightning, tornadoes, flash flooding, and tropical storms or hurricanes combined.
Rip currents are powerful, narrow channels of water that can carry you swiftly offshore, away from the beach, and into deeper water. If you get caught in a rip current, stay calm. It will not pull you underwater, and its force will eventually dissipate. Don't try to swim directly back to shore in a rip current. They move faster than an Olympic swimmer, so no matter how fast you swim, the current will still pull you out, and your effort will just make you tired. Your way out of a rip current is to swim parallel to the shore until you're out of the current, and then at an angle towards shore. Two other types of currents to know about are longshore currents and structural currents. A longshore current carries you not away from the shore, but along the shoreline, making it difficult to keep your footing or to stay in front of one spot on the beach. Longshore currents become dangerous when they carry you swiftly down a shoreline and into the path of other dangers, like rougher waters, larger waves, and rip currents. They can also carry you towards structures like piers and breakwalls and the dangerous, turbulent conditions around them. To escape a longshore current, swim toward the beach. Structural currents are found alongside structures like piers, jetties, and breakwalls and are usually always present.
People will find themselves in trouble if they're playing in the water near the piers. They'll find themselves getting pulled out in a rip current that forms in that structural current.
A structural current pulls along the structure, outward like a rip current does, and combines with quickly repeating waves that collide with the structure and bounce back, creating a chaotic sea state that can tire you out and prevent you from escaping. This is known as the washing machine effect, and it is a dire situation, carrying you from one dangerous predicament into another with no clear path to safety. If you get caught in a structural current, you cannot swim back to shore, as the currents are usually too strong. If the pier has a ladder and you are being carried toward it, try to get to it and climb out. Otherwise, in this life-threatening situation, conserve your energy and call out to bystanders on the pier to summon help and to throw you a life ring or anything else that floats. The best way to avoid a structural current is to stay away from these structures.
Don't swim within 100 yards of piers, jetties, or inlets. A lot of beaches will have signs posted asking people not to swim within 100 yards of those structures because of that dangerous situation. And if you see do not enter signs, please obey that, or red flags next to structural currents. Make sure you're well away from those.
If you get caught in any of these dangerous current situations, your first survival strategy is to stay calm. If you're caught in a current and get overly anxious or tired, stop exerting yourself. Float or tread water to conserve your energy and calm down, and then seek the best path to safety, either swimming out of the current or continuing to float while signaling for help. Although these tips can help you to escape danger, your best way out of danger is to not get into it. Know before you go. Arrive knowing the local weather, surf, and tide forecasts for the beach you're visiting. Conditions change throughout the day, so stay alert, check for updates often, and obey posted safety guidance.
If there is a high risk of rip currents in effect, or a high surf advisory or a high surf warning in effect, it's important to know that before you go to the beach. Make sure you're staying safe.
Remember that the Gulf is not a swimming pool. It is an inherently dangerous, unforgiving environment. Safety requires situational awareness that can be impaired by inexperience, recklessness, or the effects of alcohol or drugs. If you're inexperienced as a swimmer or new to the area, take care, stay calm, don't venture beyond your abilities, and always take a flotation device. With a little planning, knowledge, and respect for weather and water, you can help make sure your beach vacations at the Gulf Coast are happy and safe.